Good afternoon. It's a real honor to be here with you. As you heard, my name is Alberto Vazquez. I've been called a lot of things in my life, but those are some very nice things that you just called me. And it never ceases to amaze me, when you get introduced, right, that you sit there and you think, damn, that's me? They're talking about me right now? And so I'm really honored to be here with you today and share a few words. And I'm going to share with you my journey, right, because my journey hasn't been easy. You heard a couple of snippets of what it's been like, but I'll tell you, statistically, I'm not supposed to be here with you. Statistically, a lot of us aren't supposed to be here today. But we're here to defy those statistics. And SACNAS was created on that very thought, to help you, to give you the tools, to provide you the support, to be able to defy those statistics. You see, for me, I grew up in an underserved community. I grew up in Barrio Logan, which is a predominantly Latino community down in Logan Heights in San Diego. Very underserved. A community where most people would go to jail and not Yale. A community that's riddled with gangs, drugs, and violence. A normal community. Well, at least that was normal to me. And it's important for us to talk about what's normal to us because oftentimes we can easily cloud our own judgment, and it's usually just based on what we have allowed to become normal to us. And for me, all these things were normal. For me, it wasn't normal to consider going to college. After all, no one in my family had ever gone to college. Shoot, my parents didn't even finish high school. They didn't even get to high school. But yet we were always told, go to school, go to school, go to school, ¿y pa' qué? What's supposed to happen there? What's supposed to happen when we get there and we don't get the tools that we need, when we don't get the support that we require, and we end up feeling like we don't belong, like we're dumb, like we don't have anything to offer. And so that was my case. And this easily led to my getting into a lot of trouble. Eventually, because the household that I grew up in was a normal household, riddled with domestic violence, with an abusive alcoholic dad, and a volatile relationship that my mom was in, raising her 4 kids. And so not surprisingly enough, after my mom had mustered up enough courage to be able to leave this volatile relationship, there she was, a first recently immigrated Mexicana with 4 kids, with low education, and the need to raise her 4 kids. And so this required for her to be at her job, which happened to be the shipyard, which she just recently retired from, where oftentimes it was no surprise that she would have to spend 12 hours at work. This might resonate with some of you because maybe this was your story. Maybe we share that similarity where our story was that mom and dad couldn't be there because they had to take care of the household. But to us as children, we're not conscious of that. To us as children, all we see is that maybe we're not important enough, that maybe we don't matter, and that's why they don't make time for us. That's why they weren't able to show up at those assemblies where you were being recognized as a student for your academic merit. And maybe because they never showed up, you decided that your self-worth was 0 to nil. Who knows? Maybe that's not your case. Maybe your case was that you grew up in a household where the expectation was so high, or you were constantly compared to your brothers and sisters or somebody else that was doing great things, and you just never made that cut. You just never lived up to that expectation because your vision might have been differently. And so we learn to fill this void with a lot of other things that create this temporary fix. And for me, easily, like many of the youth in my neighborhood, it became substance abuse, it became bad relationships, it became just hanging out and getting validation with the guys on the corner, with the guys from the hood. Now, this started causing a lot of chaos in my household. I had a step-parent who came into the picture. That might resonate with you. The fact that now I had to learn how to be culturally competent because my stepdad was Arabic, and up to now I had only seen these gentlemen in the liquor stores near my neighborhood. And so now I had to learn how to interact with folks from different cultures. I didn't know that then. Now I know that. So now I get to see what it's like to both be the perceiver and the perceived. And how do I get to change or affect what I want to see or how I want people to see me? Needless to say, many of my ventures growing up led to homelessness, led to a dysfunctional family environment, and ultimately incarceration, where I would spend many of my years as a youth, where I would spend most of my 20s as an adult, because that's what became normalized to me. So here I am, 2007, September, being paroled for the last time, and I decided I had to do something different. I decided if I wanted something different, I had to try something new. And that was going to require for me to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And because of that, I decided, well, shoot, I'll give this school thing a shot. And I'll be honest with you, I went to community college for three main reasons. I went to get financial aid. I went to go meet girls. Of course, I was a lot more handsome back then. And I went to stay out of trouble. And I share that with you in all honesty because I don't really care about what your motivation is. Just be motivated. Just be motivated and show up every day, and guess what? You'll figure it out. But the moment you stop showing up, that's the moment you give up. So because I had gotten the ability, my last incarceration, to be a wildland firefighter, and I got the opportunity to get a state certification in water treatment, I decided, because I got out and I couldn't get a job because of my record, that I would study something along the sciences to beef up my certification in the hopes that someday I would be able to attain one of these jobs, one of these great dream jobs, right? One of those jobs with benefits. One of those jobs like a normal person. And so I pursued the sciences, not knowing what the heck I was getting into, to be honest with you. But I showed up every day. And by showing up, I got my first opportunity in research through the MESA program down at San Diego City College with San Diego Coastkeeper. Huge learning curve because all these things were brand new to me. But I was investigating runoff water quality. It was a great time because now I had envisioned brand new things that I had never thought were possible. And that led me to securing other positions in researching infectious diseases, malaria to be more specific, where I was able to work on something that was sexy, right? People know malaria. I was like, wow, this is cool. But it wasn't satisfying to my soul. And I learned about my learning style and what works for me. And I learned that working at a bay all day long with my earbuds in, just dealing with tiny aliquots that I could not even see with my naked eye, just didn't make it for me. And I share that with you because it's important for you to decide, as you heard a couple of things earlier on, what works for you. What's going to get you going? What's going to cause you to want to get up and go do what you go do? And so for me, I was missing that human element, that human piece. I wanted to give back. And so after 2 years of doing the ability to get into malaria research, I decided I want to shift gears, and I tried a couple of different things. And the presentation that I put together for you is to show you that it doesn't matter what science you're in, there's multiple ways that you can apply it, and some of the places that you would least expect. So for me, teaching was one of them, and I love it because it allows for me to teach from a special place. It allows for me to redefine pedagogy, and it allows for me to make lessons relevant. Why not teach physics using lowriders? Why not convey the message or the concept of chemistry by relaying it to making Kool-Aid at home? Why not talk about combustion reactions and the engine of a car? These are things that our kids from the inner city can relate to. These are things that would gauge their excitement. These are things that would help them to see that a scientist is no longer an old white man in a lab coat, but it's this bald vato standing in front of you. Because that's what it's about, folks. The ability to take my skills and my ability in the sciences and influence decision makers by working in politics. I got to work for elected officials and being able to educate them about some of the things and the importance of the ways that we apply some of the things locally in our municipalities. Right? Here again, stormwater runoff that I got to work in. But wait, let's take it a step further. Let's talk about educating our communities about things like flooding when El Niño came through. And what is El Niño anyway? Is that little boy? See, it's the little boy. The little boy que hace un desmadre, right? Because he floods everything out. But what about when you live in a poor community? And when you get flooded out, that's everything you own. What about helping those folks protect themselves from that? What about talking about flood insurance? What about explaining to them everything that's going on around them so that we can create folks that are science literate? Here was another opportunity for that. And what about helping to avoid these catastrophes? By making sure that our local government put some teeth behind their things and was proactive to be able to clear channels so that there wouldn't be any flooding. Well, eventually I decided my graduate research had to be something that I was more passionate about, and I went instead into addressing environmental disparities, and I overlapped it with socioeconomic status and the way we design our communities, and that's where I'm stuck right now. And I say stuck because, again, I want to be honest with you. It's not easy. You know, we talk about imposter syndrome. Half of us might not even know what it is, but every time you doubt yourself, guess what? You're dealing with imposter syndrome. Every time you tell yourself you don't got what it takes, you're dealing with imposter syndrome. Every time you feel like you want to give up because you failed, you're dealing with that imposter syndrome. And so for me, I've been 95% done with my master's degree for quite some time. And I don't have people that look like me that I feel comfortable in approaching and saying, hey, I don't know what I'm hung up on, but I'm hung up. Instead, I have to feel like I'm expected to have it all figured out. And you know what? I want to normalize that experience for you. I want you to walk away today knowing that if you don't have it all figured out, guess what? It's absolutely okay. If you doubt yourself, guess what? It's going to be all right. But you know what? If you don't take advantage of the resources and the people you get at your disposal right here, then you're not really advocating for yourself the way you should. Some of the things that allow for me to continue to push through, because you got to ask yourself, why do you do what you do, right? It's because I want to give back. It's because for me, it's the commitment of having something else. I go back to the malaria research, and guess what? I didn't get that instant gratification that I wanted. And sometimes as a scientist, that's a problem, right? Because how many times don't you fail and you have to try and try again? Well, folks, I want to tell you there's a season for everything. And today and last year, you've been tilling the ground, you've been working that field, not to get something back today, maybe not even tomorrow, but possibly for the next years to come. So that my kids won't have to be a first-generation student, so that when my kids walk on a college campus or in a laboratory, they don't have to feel out of place. So that in my household, we can read books to our kids and talk about fun stuff like chemistry from an early age. That's not really what I do, but it sounded good, right? It's exciting, though. It's exciting to think that you have the capacity and you will be that innovator in your family, in your community, perhaps even in your region, right? Because that's what it's going to take. Cultural change. It's going to take somebody that knows what it's like to be able to tell other people what it could be like. So my commitment, because I am formally incarcerated, I like to give back. And there's two great things that I'm very passionate about, is providing advocacy work for currently and formerly incarcerated individuals and also increasing diversity in the sciences. So I continuously provide myself opportunities to expose these individuals to the sciences or to create any collaboration that might have not existed before. I'm allowed, not through my job, but on my own time, on my personal time, to think like a pioneer and to ask and use the power of inquiry to say, what could it look like to increase exposure for our community college students so that when they transfer over to the university, they don't have to feel like they're less than. They don't have to feel like they're just a community college student. Because you're so much more than that. You're so much more than that. So here I do have the opportunity, and I've had the chance to create or to put together author little grants, equity grants I call them. Last year I was fortunate enough to be able to take a big group from the San Diego region up to their very first SACNAS conference. And the joy that they had in their face when they saw people that looked just like them. When they heard stories that resonated with them of individuals that they could look up to, of individuals that could be their mentors, of individuals they could become. Life-changing, folks. Life-changing. So I have some suggestions for you. And I like pictures, so I just put these up. This is from an event where I take all the trees from the old Christmas lots and we ask them to donate them to us and we give them to underserved communities, right? Households that wouldn't otherwise have a Christmas tree. And you see, we do whatever we have to do to get that tree home. Put it on the paletero cart, put it on the baica with my little granddaughter. We're going to get it home, right? That's what it's going to take, folks. Not that you have a paletero cart, right? But it's going to take for you to have some tenacity. You're going to have to be resourceful. And guess what? If you come in from a background like mine, you don't have to give up your hustle. Not at all. You just use your hustle for something different. Use it for something positive, and you'll take no for an answer. So be your best advocate, because nobody's going to tell the world how great you are like you. Network. You've heard it plenty of times. Don't be afraid to create your own opportunities. You don't have to wait till something exists. You see a need, you make it happen. Be thankful when you're told no. I know this one's tough, but be thankful for it because it's allowing you to learn to be comfortable hearing no and not get all aguitado and apachurrado and walk away upset and poor me and boo-hoo. You say thank you very much and you continue to move forward. Embrace the challenges. This one's huge. What's embrace? That's an actual question. What's an embrace? A ver, bunch of scientists. A 3-letter word for embrace.
It's like to be one with the circumstance and then kind of like how you move forward.
Oh, way analytical, bro. Too much science going on. It's a 3-letter word. I'll make it quick because I have limited time, right? 3-letter word, hug. Thank you very much. So when I go hug somebody, let me tell you, it's a series of articulated movements that happen so quick you don't even think about it twice, right? But if somebody's tall, then I'm going to do one of these. Se va a hacer pa acá, hemos hacer pa acá. We're going to avoid awkward face time, right? So, right? Am I right? When you prepare to hug and how tight you're going to squeeze them, y todo, right? Embrace the challenges. Be ready for them because they're going to come. Make those a series of articulated movements so that you don't get caught off guard. Be prepared for those. And don't be afraid to fail, right? A ver, let's see how far I can get. I think I got 2 more slides. Rapidito. All right. Identify your limitations and your needs, right? This is very important. We have personal, morale issues, self-esteem, self-worth, cultural expectations and pressures. I have friends who are guys who their dads say, you know what, you're not going to go to school, you're going to go to work because that's what men do. This is some of the cultural context that you got to deal with. Subculturally, It is that you want to go to school, you don't want to get in trouble, and your homeboys, hey, ¿qué onda? Como de que muy escuelín, muy nerd. It's all right, it's cool to be a nerd. But you got to be aware of these parameters, right? Psychologically, academically, financially, socially, and maybe you have disabilities, and that's okay too. But be aware. Be aware of your teaching styles, of your learning styles, because sometimes you're going to have teachers that teach you in a certain way that you're not learning, and you're going to have to learn how to make that work for you. Because otherwise, if you're like me, you're going to walk away feeling really dumb, feeling like I don't get this, I don't belong here. So I still feel like that sometimes. So the takeaways were multifaceted jewels. You don't have to give up who you were. You don't have to give up your personal identification with your homies or with your friends or with your family members. Guess what? You are a valuable community jewel, and just like the multiple facets of a jewel contribute to its worth, so do yours. And one of your facets might be as a parent, one might be as a son or a daughter, as a student, as an employee. They're all equally important. Don't you forget that. Again, I can't emphasize social capital enough, self-advocacy, networking, creating opportunities, taking advantage of those opportunities, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because that's the only time you're gonna see some growth. Checking your privilege. We're so quick to always point the finger at somebody else's privilege, but we don't think about the way that we have privilege on somebody else. And gentlemen, I always like to give this example. I'll tell you, one way that we can take a litmus test of our privilege is by looking at when we walk out to a parking structure at night and not think about it twice, while our lady counterparts don't necessarily get to feel that comfortable. So if there's something that subtle there, imagine how many other things there are. And it's not fair for us to just point the finger at the rich white man like we always like to do. How do we hold personal biases and judgments of others? Just let you sit with that. Sense of belonging, validation, you need those. And if there's any instructors here, if there's any faculty members, administrators, if you really want to see effectiveness on your campus, you need to start highlighting those things. And guess what? Your students are going to engage all on their own. It's beautiful. Don't be afraid to fail. And the value of exposure to mentors and professional examples. I got cotton mouth. Examples is very important. Get yourself connected with some folks here. SACNAS was life-changing for me. Life-changing. And if it wasn't for me trying to network and getting where I fit in, I wouldn't be meeting the people that I've met here and I had the privilege to have had met and crossed paths with, or even be up here to share my story with you today. So I'll leave you with this. If this bald-headed vato can be up here, having had undergone many of the challenges that I have, and still continuing to persist in my education, and not only that, but constantly have my hand back to pull others, then I wouldn't say there's too many excuses for us. And I would expect that each and every one of you here, this is my call of action to you, would continue to do the same and pay it forward for those generations behind you. For those kids in your families, for those individuals in your communities, for those individuals who have sacrificed life and limb so that you can have the opportunities that you have today. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. I didn't title it that, but I had to improvise, adapt, and overcome to get this message across today. So you see, it's all about just filling in the blanks, folks. Do what you got to do, enjoy your experience, but come up with a plan. Muchas gracias. Enjoy the rest of your conference.